fighting for our son's life. This is part 41 of sharing my story on here because it's so much easier than writing another book. Beginning of January 2015, our 4-year-old son woke up one day and could not move. He was completely paralyzed, and he had been born at home, had never been to a Western medicine doctor, and had been a completely healthy child, as were all of our children who were born in similar ways. When he woke up and could not move, we took him to urgent care because emergency medicine is there for a reason. And urgent care immediately sent him to the Children's Hospital in Austin, Texas. And it was absolutely terrifying. Like, they did not know what was going on with him. He had one elbow that was rather swollen and really just could not move his spine or his joints. At 4 years old, like, he was fully potty trained. He was a very active and rambunctious little dude. And then suddenly he couldn't eat. He's like completely paralyzed. It was like, what is going on? And he was in a considerable amount of pain as well. And so they put him on all kinds of, morphine and antibiotics and all these different things. And they're trying to figure out what's going on with him. And the first night, both Reed and I and our other son stayed there at the hospital with him. But that didn't last long, because not only did I have to go back to work, we have 3 other kids at home now, or 4. No, we had it just didn't really work for all of us to stay at the hospital because there were so many of us. And we were thinking, okay, he's just going to be able to come home pretty quickly. Well, after the first night, we discovered nothing was happening quickly. Like, he was going to be there for a while. He ended up spending 9 days in the hospital. We did not have insurance and have never had medical insurance because we don't normally use Western medicine. So it cost over $3 million. They did surgery on his elbow. They incubated the stuff that was in his elbow, the inflammation, and nothing grew. They had no diagnosis. Reed and I started doing 2 days on, 2 days off. And I was off work for this time because, like, my son's in the hospital, and we have, 4 other kids, and then the survivor who's living with us. And it was so much because he is very, very sick. Like, he lost a lot of weight and was not doing well. And they've just got him pumped full of morphine. And I felt like they weren't really hearing us, because they were treating him as though he was a child that had had all the normal Western medicine protocols, and he had had none of them. And we weren't getting to some of the real tests because, he had so many drugs in him, we were getting false negatives. And it was hard to know what it was. At the same time, we're posting all of this on the internet because we've lived on the internet so much. And people are telling us, try this and try this. And I'm researching every rabbit trail, trying to figure out what on earth is wrong with him. And after 9 days, Reed ended up staying a 3rd day on his last shift, because he was really close to letting the doctors allowing him to be released into our care so we could go try some alternative medicine, see if we could get a diagnosis. And so Reed stayed 3 days, and his big male whiteness helped us get him released, and we brought him home. And he was so terrifyingly sick. I will add a couple pictures in here, because he went from being a plump little 4-year-old to being very scary and skinny. And I don't normally post pictures of children on the internet. However, these ones have been used so much throughout, because we were really public during this time, that its permission has been given over and over. It's kind of like they've already been seen a million times. So we bring him home from the hospital, and now we are like a month past due on rent. And those good Christian landlord lost their shit, in the biggest possible way. As if, I know obviously paying rent is important and you can't just not pay rent. I understand his plight. However, I was actively working my son had been in the hospital and they decided to kick us out. They didn't go through any eviction paperwork. They literally just used pure aggression and brute force, like banging on the door every day, being like, if you're not paying, you got to get out. And it was absolutely fucking terrifying. My son is literally bedridden. We're having to detox him off of all these drugs, which is even worse than when he went into the hospital. But I do have a team of other clinicians and doctors who had done amazing work with other people. And so I'm putting together this team that can help him, and they're detoxing and we're doing it. We're going to doctors every single day, but like we're getting evicted at the same time. And I had a number of communities and things going from the anti-trafficking stuff that I had met some people, and they're an amazing, very Christian family. I had this small group at one point where it was like adult workers and missionary hardcore Christians that were working together to get funding for survivors and adult workers of all types to get out of really ugly situations. So I had this cool little, I don't know what to call it other than like it was a way to pass funds from one community to the next without judgment. Like it was a really badass thing. So one of the Christian families that did a lot of fundraising, they did a GoFundMe for our family. And in literally like 8 or 10 days, they raised over $15,000 and bought our family an RV that really just changed our life. We ended up moving it onto a property that was like 5 acres out in Leander on the outskirts of Austin. And we were sharing this property with a very cool, grumpy old man. But it worked out really well because it made our budget much less and I could easily support the family. But it was probably one of the most like appalling and shocking situations, taking our son who has to be carried, very fragile, covered in a rash, like very scary looking, as they're literally yelling at us to get out of the house. And if I could go back, I would be like full of fury and rage because what happened was so incredibly fucked up. But at the time I was just so beaten down and so like full of shame from losing everything and from like cowering. And now I'm in a bar and I'm not understanding anything. And I literally just cowered and hid and just like ran out, went to my little trailer and worked on getting him better, because that was really when your son is facing like certain death, you do everything in your power to help them, to remove the pain. And it was just horrifying. So now the survivor ends up being in a relationship with someone else and things start to go pretty south with her. And it was just the time. She was really jealous about my attention being split. And she'd been under our care for over 2 years, partly with another family and then partly traveling with us. And it was just time for her to move on. And she did, but she was not happy about it. And that was kind of ugly. And at the same time, I'm like, I am doing all that I can to just keep my family alive and moving forward. And she can be a part of the family, but not treating us like that. So going somewhere else is probably a good idea. And so Reed and I and the 4 little kids move into this RV, and my oldest daughter is going back and forth between her dad's house and our house. So we have like up to 7 people in a 35-foot fifth wheel, and it is so freaking cramped. And we're just trying to figure out how to keep him alive. And it is literally around the clock care. Just trying to figure out, is he breathing? There were so many nights where I would come home from work bartending, coming home at 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and Reed's sitting next to his bed crying, and I just curl up in his lap and we cry and hold each other. We're just like, having a sick child is the most terrifying thing I think I have ever been through. And that's saying a lot given my story. It is a lot.